So people have been understandably very much on edge this week. So we wanted to close the week by laying out what we think is going to happen, how this is all going to unfold over the coming days. One of the reasons that people have been really nervous, in particular on the left, is some of the firings that happened at the Pentagon. The latest one that there's reporting on is this idea that the director of the CIA, Gina Haspel, could be fired. Now, the reporting is that this is over like some Russiagate thing. She wouldn't declassify the documents that they wanted her to declassify or whatever. The reporting on the Pentagon ones, which I think you're a little more bought into than I am, is that this was because they wouldn't let him get out of Afghanistan. I tend to think that most of Trump's firings are about more like petty, personal, they didn't do whatever I wanted them to do thing.
It is that. But it was also, and I made some calls on this, so the reason I'm more bought into it is because they actually appointed this guy, Douglas McGregor from the NSC, who was the vice president's national security advisor before that on the NSC, onto the new acting defense secretary's staff. McGregor has been day one on the administration, get out of Afghanistan. He's been one of the only people in the NSC. He and McMaster used to totally go at it. And so that is why I'm absolutely convinced of that. And I think the reason why it's happening after the election is they didn't want the headlines. It was openly telegraphed. Trump was like, I'm going to fire Esper and Haspel.
But I feel like it would have been good headlines.
I agree with you.
Like, we're getting on Afghanistan finally. That would have been good for him.
This is where the national swamp comes into play, because who are all the people freaked out about this? Establishment Republicans in Congress. The Armed Services Committee is like, I'm very upset that they're firing all of these civilians. I'm like, well, the civilians are defying the civilian commander-in-chief, so fire them. You know, if they says, get out of Afghanistan.
You're not going to find me crying a river over the Raytheon lobbyist, Mark Esper.
Why should you?
Fired, but it's also like, if you were serious about getting out of Afghanistan in the first place, I don't know why you picked these people or John Bolton or Mike Pompeo, for that matter, to start with.
That is a Trump problem.
Yes, endemic. And that is the thing with these firings and the timing of them. And it's so classic Trumpian because it gives the people who really see him as like an existential threat and this like Hilarion fascist figure, it gives them just enough to feel like there's something really big and nefarious afoot.
Yeah.
When, look, I mean, frankly, we've interviewed these people, we've interacted with them. And there's nothing, I mean, look, what they are doing is nefarious. Trying to undermine the legitimacy of the election is nefarious. It is bad for the country. The president refusing to concede, all of that. But there's not much more than what we're already seeing. And if you're concerned about this grander plot succeeding, you should be really heartened that so far the court system, all of Trump's stupid lawsuits that were basically groundless, they're just smacking them down left and right.
Yeah.
So how is this ultimately going to play out? The states are going to certify their results very soon, and I don't see any real barrier to that happening apace. I think we have a tear sheet about how exactly this plays out. And every state has a different date. I think the first one is Georgia. Correct me if I'm wrong. I think it's November 20th. Georgia's supposed to certify their results. Then by the time you're into December, basically all of the key swing states have certified their results at that point.
So we already have some states that have been certified here. None of them who are contentious. So now from here on out is where things start to get interesting. November 16th is going to be Virginia. November 17th is Florida. But the actually contentious ones, November 20th, the very first one, is the state of Georgia. Then November 23rd, pivotal date. That's Michigan and Pennsylvania. And then after that comes Arizona, which is going to be later on November 30th. And things start to roll in. Wisconsin on December 1st. That is why a recount actually can't happen in Wisconsin until after the certification. So that is when that would all take place. And then the very last state to certify its results is December 11th in California. And then what happens that is after the states certify their elections, technically state legislatures could intervene, right? So they could try and cast legitimate or doubt on that. They could appoint their own electors to the state electors in order to the electoral college. Extraordinarily unlikely that something like that would happen. It also is something that would be challenged with a whole ton of different litigation. And this culminates on December 14th when each state elector formally casts their vote. So whenever that happens, that's the most important thing. That is when the results become official, so to speak. And then the final certification is January 6th. Congress counts and certifies the electoral vote. So basically, December 14th is the ultimate end of everything, largely because that is when the Electoral College meets and all state results have been formally certified by each body. There's, just so you know, that's kind of when it's over.
So, I mean, it has been floated, and I want to give credence to this. This is an idea that Trump's sort of playing with.
Right.
Could we get the electors to make a different, could we get the legislatures that are Republican to make a different choice in terms of electors? So to go against the will of the people and what the states have certified. As you say, I think it is highly unlikely that that would occur. And what would be one of the big states that they would need to have this happen? In Pennsylvania, where the Republicans have already said, we're not going to do that. Now, I mean, could they go back on their word? Theoretically, yes. But so the key dates to watch here, if you're feeling really nervous about how this is all going to play out, are, starting on November 20th, Georgia will certify their results and the other swing states. That's like the first hurdle. And they're trying to muddy the waters to have some ground to keep these states from certifying their results. The Arizona Republican Attorney General said that Joe Biden won their state. In Georgia, the Republican Secretary of State has been very, upfront and very clear and very fact-based in his actions as well. So I think there's little to worry about there. But if you are worried, those are key dates to watch. And then, as you said, the final one, when you can really say, OK, this is all going the way that we think it should go based on the results, based on the vote, based on who was actually elected president, is December 14th?
December 14th,
when the Electoral College meets, and that's set in the Constitution.
And let me even pour a little bit more cold water on the state electors thing. Technically, they could do it. Extraordinarily unlikely it would survive legal scrutiny, because this is the argument that they would have to make, that there was an electoral failure under the U.S. Code, that an election was a failure. That was what the state legislators would have to try and claim legally. Nobody has ever tried that before, and it would be under a civil rights law. So that would have to be, they would have to lay out a series of facts that would basically say that this was a failure of the law, of due process, and all of that for Trump. Almost certainly no way Supreme Court is going to rule on that. And
how are their court cases going so far?
Right,
they're all getting smacked down.
That's the thing, is everybody's like, oh, the Supreme Court. Well, listen, I mean, the Supreme Court has to consider its own legitimacy. You think that if they're going to vote that do that for Trump, first of all, we all know that's it. Dems will pack the court. Also, in the eyes of the public, done. I mean, they actually have their own incentive in order to rule this way, especially in something like this. So extraordinarily unlikely that this would, even if they tried to do it, that it would pass legal muster. And these types of cases go to SCOTUS within like a day or two, right?
Yeah.
Like, because of the urgency in deciding the election. So December 14th, that's when it's done. Very, very likely that that's where we're headed. So you can calm down. That's where it's coming.
And so how do you think, the one thing that I've been trying to think about is how specifically Trump is going to play this out. Like, we know he's not going to concede. He's not going to admit defeat.
Never.
He's going to continue to always say that it was stolen from him and it was fraudulent, et cetera, et cetera. How do you think that he gets out and saves face?
Look, he can say, they stole it from me, they certified, it's a conspiracy, I'm not going away, I represent the 71 million, I'm fighting for them, and
will be vindicated in 2024.
Will be vindicated in 2024, or you will always know what really happened here. And in a lot of ways, too, this is a payback thing from what I sing on Russiagate. People are like, wow, can you question? They're like, you people questioned us for 4 years. We're going to, I mean, it's like a self-aware thing of being like, no, screw you back. Like, after what you put us through on Russiagate, which I'm not saying it bears merit, but like, I understand where it comes from. And so it's a bad situation for the country to be in, right? And I think, again, shows the real damage of Russiagate was once you opened that door, you opened it for everybody, for bad faith actors everywhere. And it's there now.
I actually think this goes back even further to the way that, the questions about Barack Obama and like delegitimizing whether he was a legitimate president because of his birthplace. So the unfortunate state of affairs, and this is not to absolve anyone of their like stupid, unconscionable behavior, either in Russiagate or Donald Trump and his acolytes right now. But I think, unfortunately, we're in a place where basically every presidential election now, one side is going to feel that it was stolen, that it was illegitimate, et cetera. And that's an indictment of all of our institutions here. And it's a really sad state of affairs in the country that we've come to that place.
100%.
Next week on Rising, we have another great week planned for you with more great guests, including Professor Richard Wolff and Washington Post economics reporter Jeff Stein.
Always fun. And remember to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any of our videos. Don't forget to like and share as well. And we will see you all next week.
Have a wonderful weekend, guys.